What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Space Marine Sampler. This is the series in which I take a very casual, relaxed, at-a-glance style approach to looking at Loyalist Space Marine forces. The goal of it is to look at this force and represent the force in Space Marine 2 operation mode, but to do that, we need to, of course, know what they look like and a bit about the lore so we can be more thematically representing them in Space Marine 2. And of course, this is all coming from the source material, which is the miniature war game, so I want to discuss some basic thoughts on collecting in there as well. With that said, this is just for the fun of it, and I was going to do a pre-heresy and codices episode, if you will, here, because I was able to represent something pretty nicely, I think, through Space Marine 2 that way, but I did get a request, so I figured let's do that first. This is for a pretty cool chapter, the Sons of Medusa Loyalist Space Marine chapter, successors of the Iron Hands, but of no particular founding. So there's a lot to kind of unpack with the Sons of Medusa, so I'll do my best to not get too bogged down in any one thing, but it's probably going to happen a little bit here and there. So first up, of course, is what the heck do they even look like, because that's important. So for the Sons of Medusa, it's important to note that this is technically their second color scheme that they've had. The first edition of 40K, those wild early years, was pretty similar, but they didn't have a different helmet color, and they actually had a literal Medusa's head for their symbol. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to look at what we know them as now. And what we know them as now is still predominantly green armor. That's exactly what they are. And they have that predominantly green armor. They have a white helmet with red helmet lenses. They use black squad markings, black weaponry, and a black chest emblem color. However, where it gets a little bit muddy to kind of tread through is looking at their chapter symbol and kind of accent coloration, because this is where we see some differences. So I'll bring up some stuff that I'll more clearly go over in the lore portion, but the Sons of Medusa are in a triad style. So they have 3 war clans that encompasses the entirety of their chapter. So much like standard companies, these war clans have different kind of colors representative of them to help them stand out, you could say. But it's not just like shoulder pad trim. It also affects the chapter symbol. And the chapter symbol is the same regardless, it's the color. So starting off with the most probably well-known Sons of Medusa look, the Atropos War Clan. This uses black trim. It's like shoulder pad in other areas, like knee pads and what have you. Black shoulder pad trim, we'll just say. Now the chapter symbol is a skull in the center of this kind of halo. And this is a black halo and a black skull, and it has a white background behind it within the halo. You've seen it in the art here that I've been showing thus far, so you know what I'm talking about. That is their symbol, and that is how it's colored for the Atropos War Clan with that black trim. However, the Lachesis, or however you pronounce that war clan, has more like a brassy, almost gold style of trim that they use. And the chapter symbol, while the same design, is the inverted coloration. So white for the halo and the skull, black for that background. And the Majira war clan doesn't have any different trim color. It's all pure green, and the symbol is, has no background color, so it's a green shoulder pad inset, of course, just like the rest, but it's just a white halo and a white skull, and that's it. So that is, in essence, the visuals of the Sons of Medusa, depending upon which war clan it is. Now, we're probably most accustomed to seeing the Atropos war clan from the Badab War art of them Forward World, although Primaris-wise we have seen, and it'll be in here somewhere, Primaris from the Majira war clan, because they have no shoulder pad color differentiation or anything like that. So, with that said, that is their visuals, so let's talk about their history, if you will. And this is where we can get a little bit more bogged down, but I'll do my best not to. You see, they are successors of the Iron Hands, but they don't come from a founding. Instead, they come from more of a pragmatic way, I suppose, of dealing with an issue that could have become much worse. potentially, right? And as such, being of no particular founding, once things stabilized, the Imperium would ratify their existence, or ratify them into existence as an official successor force. So they're probably one of the few chapters out there that don't come from a particular founding number. And this is because this all started during the turbulent time period of the Imperium when the Imperium was split in two. Yes, this is more turbulent than typical turbulent times of just existing in the Imperium. This was during the so-called Nova Terra Integrinum, or however you want to pronounce it. The Imperium was basically split in two. And it's because of this that the whole thing that spawned the Sons of Medusa, the Moray Schism, really was able to, gather steam and weight behind it and everything. Because if the Imperium was more stable, this probably would have been nipped in the bud before it really took off, and you might never see the Sons of Medusa. But because things were turbulent already and high stakes and whatever else, this was able to gain some traction and kind of infiltrate the Mechanicum. The Moray Schism is the biggest thing since the Dark Mechanicum happened during the Horus Heresy to impact the Mechanicum. This started at the Forge World of Moray, and with a trio of Tech-Magos, which is part of the reasoning why we see a triarchy, if you will, amongst the war clans of Medusa. But anyway, they believed through divine logic engines and what have you that they could discern the future by reading the micro fluctuations of the Astronomicon beacon, as it was having a series of predictive patterns that they could supposedly discern and read, and these kind of what they call geometric patterns contain the word of the Omnissiah God Emperor, right? And they could discern the future of humanity through this. And one of the things they were talking about is that the ecclesiarchy and the Mechanicum were going to merge, and this new Imperium-wide religion everybody would follow, and it would lead things. And it was very controversial, pretty radical, and it shook the Mechanicum to its core, the likes of which hasn't been seen since the Horus Heresy. Now, different groups closely tied to the Mechanicum dealt with this differently to a degree, but it impacted all different echelons. So you had Tech Priests, the priesthood of Mars, impacted by this. You had the Tech Guard, the Scutari, impacted by this. Certain Titan legions were also impacted by the schism, with having a conflict of belief amongst their ranks, which is basically what the big thing is. And even the Iron Hands and other Iron Hand successor forces, since they're very closely tied to the Mechanicum, also were impacted by this. So the way that this was dealt with by these forces varied. We're looking at the Sons of Medusa. So what the Iron Hands and their successors basically did is they said, okay, if you believe in the Moray way, get out of my house. Is basically what they did. And the small little splinter groups within the Iron Hands and other successors would be exiled and come together and form their own force, the Sons of Medusa. Now, what's interesting about this is, like I said, it's not just the Iron Hands, but their other successors as well would be impacted by this, and they do the same thing. However, it is believed that the Red Talons didn't. There is some evidence to suggest that those who believed in the Moray doctrine within the Red Talons were mercilessly destroyed because the Red Talons have no chill at all. So instead of letting them part ways, they decided to not suffer that, and they just destroyed anybody and purged their ranks of anybody who believed that, which is just how the Red Talons get down. But anyways, outside of that, we have the Sons of Medusa come into being via this schism, basically, that's happening. And then later on, once things stabilize, whatever, the Imperium would ratify them as an official successor force. Being exiled, there were some things kind of agreed upon, and that was that they would not take up arms against each other. Well, not the Red Talons, obviously, but the other ones. They would just do their thing and be crusadery style, more or less. And that's what we have with the Sons of Medusa. So Medusa is the homeworld of the Iron Hands, and their name, Sons of Medusa, suggests, just like they believe that they are still the sons of Pharaoh's Madness, and they still are Iron Hands in their own right. They're just palette swapped, more or less. And that's how they run, because their Morayan beliefs are actually quite different from what it started as millennia ago. So in the 41st millennium or 42nd millennium now, the belief structure of the Sons of Medusa, their Morayan kind of style, is considerably different than what actually started the whole schism in the first place. In any case, that's how they got started. And as such, they have 3 war clans, each led by an Iron Thane, and those 3 Iron Thanes together have a council, and they lead the chapter that way. But they lead it with support from the Chamber Ferrum. The Chamber Ferrum exists in the Sons of Medusa to keep the Sons of Medusa unified. You see, being 3 individual war clans that are completely self-contained, more or less. For example, there is no 10th company for recruits. Each war clan maintains that themselves amongst their forces. You have basically 3 mini chapter style setups, kinda. And to avoid them being just fragmented 3 mini chapters, they have the Chamber Ferrum. The Chamber Ferrum has a lot of authority and a lot of weight behind it, and this is the extensive brotherhood of Tech Marines within this chapter. Now, unlike other kind of standard Codex chapters, the Tech Marines are much more numerous and have much more authority in the Sons of Medusa. They are responsible specifically to enforce unity and keep the chapter together as a whole, so they exist outside the 3 war clan structure. They're kind of their own entity that exists outside and permeates all 3 war clans together. They do this because they maintain supplies for the different strike forces. They are in command of the forges of the chapter, and they also have within them the chapter's apothecarion. So they have a lot of authority and weight and their own firepower, right? If you're a member of the Chamber Ferrum, your armor is going to have that kind of classic Tech Marine red on it in some capacity. And it's not just Tech Marines, literally. There's also like Dreadnought Ancients that are part of the Chamber Ferrum and what have you. So it's kind of like its own unique elite force that helps keep the Sons of Medusa unified and not splinter off into 3 mini chapters or anything like that. Outside of that, though, they basically are really aggressive, just like the Iron Hands. They're hyper fixated on purging weakness. They despise weakness. They despise the enemies of the Imperium. They are staunchly loyal. To put it bluntly, they are like palette swap Iron Hands in that regard. So in terms of collecting miniatures, you can always do whatever bionic upgrades that might be out there, or Kip Ash conversions, what have you, and have a pretty striking force, because you're going to have the bright emerald green and the white helmets with then metallic limbs and whatnot that you see like in Space Marine bits that you're gonna make. You could make extensive use of, because they do that themselves, just like the Iron Hands do. So that is the Sons of Medusa. Now this could be a bit of a redundant video in a sense, because the Iron Hands haven't been touched by Space Marine 2 yet. They have 3 first founding forces left in terms of any type of DLC packs. They haven't done Blood Angels, White Scars, or the Iron Hands yet. So, depending upon what we get, if it's a champion, then we're going to get some weapon skins that could be pretty useful to use just to further flesh out your Sons of Medusa, if you're going to make them in Space Marine 2. But if they do a DLC pack for successors, more than likely the Sons of Medusa are going to be there, so you just unlock them. But for now, we don't have that. So what you can do is basically use Warpstone Glow for the green. Use the whatever, use the white, I think it's White Scar, for the white helmet. Red helmet lenses. If you're going to do squad markings, you can just do them in black. If you're going to represent a certain war clan, then you can do the trim. I went with the Tropos, the classic, so I went with the black trim, and that's how I set up the chapter symbol. Now, we don't have the chapter symbol in the game right now, but we do have the Nova Marines chapter symbol, and the Nova Marine chapter symbol, through experimenting for it for a whole other force that I have set up for this series that I haven't done yet. I know that you can get a lot of mileage out of this chapter symbol. So we took the Nova Marine chapter symbol here, and I did the colorations like the Atropos, as you can see, and whatever else, or as you've been seeing. So that is really um, cool. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's really close, so it works out rather nicely. I believe every class. I don't remember looking for this deliberately because I don't often use it, but I believe every class has a bionic limb armor ornament for one of their arms. So use that, this color patterning, the Nova Marine symbol, customized, and pick a class, and you got yourself the Sons of Medusa. I went with the heavy. It just felt right. It's pretty, beefy, right, in that armor, and the limb looks really good there, and it just felt like it fit the Sons of Medusa nicely. The Iron Halo being a very techy thing also felt like appropriate, so that's why I went with that. But any class works because they're Astartes, so they have this capability. But that's the Sons of Medusa in Space Marine 2, which may be a redundant thing whenever they do an Iron Hands DLC, should they get one, and I think they will. Now, whether we get them as a DLC pack for successors or just as a champion, I don't know. But I do suspect that to happen at some point. In any case, if we do get a DLC pack for them, I hope there's armor ornaments that are more bionic cyberneticness, that doesn't just straight up have the Iron Hand symbol on it, so we can make good use of it here, because that'd be pretty cool too. But anyways, we'll have to wait and see on that. That is the Sons of Medusa Space Marine chapter. A lot to go over in the lore, quite honestly. When it comes to their vehicles, we don't need to worry about that in Space Marine 2, but I will touch upon this to kind of wrap things up. We've seen art for their vehicles, particularly for the Atropos War Clan, where the vehicles are predominantly black painted with some green accent. You could go that route and just sub out the black for the brass, or just have it be completely green depending upon which war clan you're doing, or you could just do it predominantly green with some more accent colors on like the doors or what have you, depending upon the war clan. But very Iron Handsy like, because it wasn't a founding, it was more so a circumstance. So you have just a belief structure that's different, but everything else in terms of combat doctrine and the way they tackle tech and their fondness for bionic and cybernetic enhancements to quote-unquote purge weakness and all that is all very much aligned with the Iron Hands. Like, honestly, this chapter wouldn't exist if we didn't have this belief schism happen. So that's why I feel okay just, constantly saying they're just like Iron Hands, because in a lot of ways when it comes to waging warfare and the like, they are. Anyways, that's it for the Sons of Medusa. A bit of a longer one because of the extensiveness that I had to go into the lore so we can wrap our minds around them a little bit. Really cool visually striking force to collect or to play in Space Marine 2, and we'll see if they show up in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in. Share your thoughts, questions, requests in the comment section, and until next time, take care.